Okay, I'm going to try to record this VOD for Flippy. Hopefully I'm not too quiet. I have not watched this yet. Gonna try and be surprised by it. One thing I will, from what little I've seen, you don't hit tab at the start. Maybe you did before you started recording, but it's good to see the team comp ahead of this. As it would be nice to comment before you actually leave spawn on what you should be doing with the team comp. Okay, I mean, good to Sonic right when you leave spawn. I'm not sure what you're planning to switch to. Maybe you thought you had a different comp before you left, which again, is always good to check right before the doors open. You never know what your randos are going to switch to. And of course, this is your first mistake, which you already knew. There's no reason to get that close to anything like that. I guess you thought that they were going to back up, but you're a ranged character. You always want to keep your distance. I will say this about your Sonics, which I saw in the first game. You seem to not utilize them very well. I don't know if you just were planning to shoot it somewhere else and you just kept it on the soldier because you saw the opportunity to shoot him. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that for the rest of this match. But those were very good shots in the soldier. I could definitely see with shots like that why you would get frustrated losing games. No real reason to cue Storm Arrow before you saw anyone. It didn't matter, but if Brigitte wasn't actually standing there, then you might have ended up wasting it. Okay, that's good. Decent use of Storm Arrow. One thing though about not wasting Sonics and using them right, it would have been great if you had Sonic them ahead of time so that you could have seen that they had moved too far to the right. It wasn't a bad shot though to try that. It did at least split the team temporarily. But always Sonicking before a dragon is always a good idea. Good backing up away from the Brigitte. Always keep your distance from the Brigitte. Actually, Storm Arrowing the Brigitte there was actually very good, even if she had her shield up, because a Storm Arrow will it'll pretty much destroy your shield if you hit every shot with it. It's pretty close. And at that point, you just shoot her in the head. At this point, you should honestly be trying to get high ground. You should be climbing up the wall to get high ground. Because if they try to get high ground, which is what they should be doing too, you can contest it. And unless I missed it, I still don't think you've hit tab, so I actually don't know what their comp is. You should be hitting tab more often. Because I actually don't remember what their team comp is. Yeah, they have a Hanzo. He should be on the high ground. There's very little that can contest you if you stand on the high ground here. Okay, not bad. I would say the dragons probably should have came out a little sooner just to make sure you capped it. I mean, obviously it wasn't necessary, but... Also, sonicking the left side probably would have been better than the right, because that's usually the door that they'll be coming through. Or, I mean, the side. As that's closer to this one. There was a couple of them over there, but you already knew they were there. This is kind of a duel you shouldn't be taking. At super close range, Soldier probably has the advantage on you. He had high ground. It's good to not let him sneak up on you and just ignore him, but it probably would have been better to just keep an eye on him, maybe sonic that left door, but just wait for him to come to you and then to shoot him in the head when you had a better advantage than him. At this point, yeah, you should be running away. You should run away sooner. Once the fight was over, there wasn't much point in trying to take pot shots because they would just dive you. Yeah, now they have a diva, so they can definitely do that. It's definitely not hitting tab enough in this game. It might just be because you're not actually dying. That might be why you haven't hit tab, because you haven't died. But it'd be nice to know what your ultimate status was for your teammates. You know, just... One of the reasons why you need to know what's going on with the enemy team, what your team's doing, is just understanding the win conditions and loss conditions. Like, how do you win this fight right now? I can't honestly say because I'm not even sure what your team is. If you had a Zarya, then you could grab dragons, but I don't think you do. Like, actually, I think your only tank might be Roadhog. Yeah, it's just bad luck not seeing them. I didn't even notice them either. Yeah, at this point, your team just got really uncoordinated. There was no solid push. Everyone went high ground, but they don't really have an advantage on high ground, except for you. And you were already up here, so it kind of screwed you over. Because that's effectively a second flank that they'd have to worry about, and then they only had to worry about one flank. Oh, you actually did hit tab there. Let's pause it for a second. Okay, so you had you had one tank as Roadhog. I guess if you're gonna have one tank, Roadhog's not the worst choice. The Moira healing is unnecessary because you only have a Roadhog. Moira's biggest advantage is healing multiple tanks. You can just have two and it's still fine, but having just a Roadhog is having two primary healers with just a Roadhog tank is super unnecessary. The Pharaoh without a Mercy isn't great, though they have no real counter to her, so I suppose it's fine. I think he might have switched to that at some point, because I don't remember seeing a Pharaoh in this whole game. You know, the enemy team's comp is better, although they also still have two primary healers, which is unnecessary, but at least they have two tanks. That would take a lot of damage. You basically lost the end of this because the team is a little uncoordinated in their attack, and their team comp was superior to yours. But yeah, you so far it really is nothing that you've done specifically that has cost you anything here. Just minor positioning things, but... Let's skip ahead a little bit. Okay, now you actually have 2 tanks. Would have been far useful on attack if you had 2 tanks, but what are you gonna do? Bastion, probably not a good idea here, but what are you gonna do? Your randos have made their choice. And again, you have 2 primary healers, which you should definitely have an off healer. This is terrible positioning by your entire team. This is going to go very badly. Getting picks right outside spawn is kind of useless. Like, when you died earlier at the very start, the problem with that wasn't just that you died, it was that it was a missed opportunity to kill the Reinhardt, because if you're still alive, you could have punished them for their being that far forward. Now that your team is this far forward, I can definitely see you just getting rolled over here and probably staggering the whole first point and not being able to recontest. I can definitely see that happening. Yeah, the Zarya got full energy because of the Bastion, which, again, you already knew is what happens in this fight. But yeah, like, this is terrible. Like, the thing with Orisa is that she needs to stay far enough away from Reinhardt because he can just keep approaching her. And once he's on her, the Orisa loses that fight. Her only advantage is to keep at range, and by playing that far forward, Reinhardt's just going to catch up to her, and then kill her, which is exactly what happened. And the Bastion wasn't really getting anything out of it, because Bastion's not really that good of a character. Also, they have their own Hanzo, who can just delete Bastion. Yeah, so that's, yeah, you lost a fight being too far forward and couldn't recontest. Exactly what I thought was going to happen. There was really no reason not to set up on high ground with a Bastion and US Hanzo. You easily would have won just by standing on the high ground. Not across from the spawn, but the high ground that's near the archway. You know, that overlooks where the turn happens. They're playing very far forward, but they got a stagger out of it, so that was good for them. They should definitely back up at this point if they were smart, but... Okay, that's kind of a wasted grav on their part. They only got you. Honestly, that's a good thing. It might feel frustrating, but they wasted grav. But now the team is kind of walking out one at a time, staggering again. This, you know. I have the volume kind of low, so I don't know if anyone's committing a voice. It sounds like no one is, but this is a time to group up and spawn. And punish the Zarya and Zenyatta for being this far forward, because they should have been punished for this, and no one grouped up. Like, it's not even the fact that you have a Bastion at this point, it was just that no one grouped up to challenge 2 people. Because Zarya at full energy with the help of Zenyatta is going to melt anyone coming out of the spawn one at a time. I mean, ultimately, shooting... Like, the fact that Zarya's high energy is obviously a huge problem. Is basically what's winning them this game. But, I mean, if you look at the pro play, Zarya always has a high energy in pros. They don't avoid shooting her bubble because it's kind of impossible. Just focus her and kill her. But no one's grouped up to do it. I mean, you don't have control over your teammates, but there should be calls to group up. Maybe they'd ignore them. But maybe they would listen. And this is why voice is also really important. Like, they had so much free push because there was no grouping up. That was unfortunate. I don't know if you missed going on the high ground, but it was, you really couldn't avoid that without, you know, knowing he was going to do it. And I mean, at this point, this angle is not necessarily super great for Junkrat because they can see you. You can arc them over over this entire archway above you. There's no reason to really be standing here when you could be standing on the point where they have to cap and just lobbing them over. That's the advantage of Junkrat, is you don't need to see them, you just lob them over. Sure, you don't know what you're shooting at, but you're gonna get something. They're gonna walk right into them. I mean, even higher ranks will walk right into them. This isn't even a silver thing. This is gonna happen. And you want to just be charging as much. You just want to be doing as much damage as possible to charge your ultimate. Because if you were doing that and you had survived, you'd have ultimate already, and this fight would then be a 1 for sure. It looks like the Zenyatta, though, is probably going to... His ult is going to win it for you, probably? Maybe? Nope, maybe not. See, now you've got on the point, and you should have just stayed back. Again, lobbing grenades just far back, and then ulting. I mean, you didn't have this problem really too much as Hanzo, except for the very beginning, but there's no real reason to get close to them. Yeah, there's no super advantage as Junkrat to get close. Sure, your aim improves, but their aim improves too. Your area denial, and you to just deny the area, you just lob into that area, get your ult, and then use it as soon as the opportunity is smart to do so. And because you pushed too far forward unnecessarily, you ended up killed, and you couldn't use your ult. So while the game was mostly lost because your team staggered for 2 points, and that cost you tremendously, at the end there was definitely an opportunity where you did something that cost the game. And it kind of sucks to be like, well, you made one mistake and it cost the game, but you know, it only takes one mistake by one player, and while your team made a whole shitload of mistakes, it's still like that's how you improve. Is you realize that just hang back as the Junkrat, just lob the grenades, get your ult, use your ult to win that fight, and just keep rinsing and repeating. Like various heroes are very much like that. Like Hanzo, sure, you can get your ult really fast, but you want to get the snipes, you want to get the single kills. Junkrat, he's mostly spam. You just do as much damage as you can, hope your the other tanks or the DPS follow up on any grenade that hits, and basically you're just farming ult charge. That's kind of Junkrat style. You want to get the Riptires, because then the Riptires wins you team fights. Especially against a bunch of silvers, they're probably going to get wrecked by it. So, like, that opportunity at the end, that was a big mistake to just walk in. Maybe you were thinking recontest the cart, but the cart wasn't moving yet. I think someone else was on it, and you still had some time. Like, the Riptire could have been the game winner there. Maybe. But they still had a lot of time to do it, so it might have still been a loss because you staggered so much, but, you know, that's what I got. This is again going with, like, the stats thing, because I never really commented on that before. Your Hanzo play was pretty good. You were making a lot of shots, and so your stats for that game were probably really, really good. You weren't losing because of aim for sure. You weren't really losing because of aim on defense either. So stats will tell you about aim, but that's definitely not your problem. Your aim is pretty good. It's more of awareness. It's more positioning. It's just realizing what you should be doing. I would also say hit tab more often, because that's how you get informed decisions. You didn't hit tab nearly enough for me to tell you, like, okay, this is what needs to happen, this is what needs to happen. Anytime there's a lull in the combat, you should basically be holding tab so you can start making your next decision on what you should be doing, where you should be standing. You know, who can contest me where I'm standing here? If it's no one, then you're probably standing in a pretty good spot. If it's someone, then you need to be aware of where they are and then thinking about it. You're just not doing that enough. It's kind of like autopilot. You're just sort of like, this is pretty good. I'm gonna shoot. I see enemy. I'm gonna shoot them. You definitely want more forethought on what the enemy is going to do and what you should be doing to stop them. I mean, I would recommend submitting more VODs. I'll do this again. This is obviously a case where team staggered cost you the game hugely. So not necessarily super. I know I think a lot of this I wasn't saying too much because it was doing pretty well. up until the stagger, and that was when everything fell apart. And that's some games. I mean, you can't necessarily control it, but you can call for group ups, and I don't think that happened. But there's room for improvement here. Your aim though, pretty good. And see, and so I'm sure some people are mentioning aim, like the strafing thing in the first game. That's you can always improve your aim. Your aim is not grandmaster level, but if it's winning you game, if it's doing fine against silvers, then that's not what's preventing you from getting the gold. Will it beat golds? I don't know. You really can't tell until you get to golds and whether or not it's holding you back or not. Your aim could be diamond level, but if everything else is not that level, then that's what's holding you in silver.